Hey guys, Ryan Fowler with the Inner Game Group. Tim and Jordan here today. I want to say Inner Masculine, but we're actually rebranding to MindChrysalis. So MindChrysalis.com, that sounds a little weird. It's new. And the reason for that is we have a new community on school.com, which has a lot of free content. I'll get into that in a bit. And it's open to everyone. So we're not changing the content at all, more or less pretty much just the same. But yeah, it's always been our goal to help everyone, help the world, and help everyone up-level their internal world. So we are now MindChrysalis, and you'll still hear Inner Masculine here and there for a while. I still have my website, Inner Masculine, where you can book sessions, etc. But MindChrysalis now, and we have Tim here, and I see, X Jordan Kurtz. I guess that's Twitter. So welcome to the show, guys. We're going to talk about Matthew Perry, who recently passed away. And go ahead and introduce yourself, Tim and Jordan.
Yeah, I'm Tim Costello with clearthattrauma.com. And we'll talk a lot today about foundation. And, we mentioned up-leveling a lot. And sadly, with up-leveling, that means you're coming from a lower place. We'll show you how to do that. And we'll also lay the foundation for what should be good parenting. Take it away, Jordan.
I'm Jordan Kurtz. If you want to follow me on X, I'm going to start trying to use that more often now.
It just sounds weird. Twitter. Yeah. It's Twitter.
J Kurtz Hypnosis. I post all my thoughts and musings about hypnosis, hypnotherapy, mental health, all that good stuff. Trying to get the word out, as we say every week, about this amazing wonderful practice of hypnotherapy.
Now, you got a website too for booking sessions, right?
Yes, it's on my Twitter. It's just JordanKurtzHypnosis.com.
Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis. All right, cool. So we all do hypnosis and just kind of life coaching in general. I do techniques besides hypnosis. We do analysis to figure out what's going on in your core. So it's not just hypnosis, but that is really Leopard works. That's Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Welcome to the show. It's the biggest tool we have. And by the way, when we say hypnosis, it's like saying we paint with oils. It's actually a very, very broad designation. It's what you do with it. So, there's people who do stage hypnosis completely different from what we do. The only thing is they get people in a relaxed state like we do. That's about it. So today will be an interesting one. Because really what we're about is core identity. What you believe about yourself deep down inside at your core. Do you feel like you can achieve your goals and dreams? Do you feel you're worthy of those? Do you feel you're good enough just for who you are? Or do you have self-doubt? Are you angry, bitter at yourself, others, life, etc.? What is in your core? We optimize that. We get the bad out. We put the best beliefs in. It changes everything. That's what Jordan does. It's what I do. It's what Tim does. And we use hypnosis to get that in you at a deep level where deep down you feel and truly believe that. That's what it's all about. Now, the reason I preface that is because Matthew Perry, Tim, you have been listening to the audiobook version of his book. And you're going to summarize, and we're going to watch some video clips today too, but you're going to summarize for us the part of his book that talks about his childhood and all the things he brings up, because we talk about toxic shame. Toxic shame is like the opposite of where we want you guys to be. It's something everyone struggles with at least a little. The people who struggle with it very severely are people like Matthew Perry. So before we dive into that, I want to let you guys know we have a lot of free resources available for you guys to help you guys up level. And yeah, we do paid sessions, of course. And if you want the deepest, quickest progress, book sessions with us. But we also have a lot of stuff that can profoundly change your life at MindChrysalis.com. This community is entirely free. It's been up about a month. We already got 108 members. It's growing every day. People are very active. 80% of users are active on this site. It puts us in the top 5% of activity for school.com. And so a lot of posts, a lot of activity, but look, 2 webinars a month. The next webinar is on the 3 levels of the money game, presented by multi-millionaire. This guy owns an apartment complex of just under 100 units, former hedge fund advisor, institutional trader for Fidelity Japan, published author. Laurent Bernoux, multimillionaire, is going to talk about 3 levels of the money game as applies to your inner world. After that, 2 weeks after that, we're going to do a webinar on procrastination and why do you procrastinate? How can you overcome it? That is all free. But look, we got content here. Past webinars recorded. You have to post and participate in the community a bit, and then you have access to this. This you have access now. You just have to join and sign up. It's all free. There's multiple videos, training videos. There's self-hypnosis audio here. There's worksheets. I mean, this is all content here. And this is to help you get your core strong. So you believe at a deep level, ability and value. It changes everything. Here's an ebook, The Subconscious Mind, How It Works, Why It Keeps You Stuck. You can see all the content here. We talk about anxiety, procrastination, not feeling like you fit in. How does our subconscious develop? How does it affect us in our daily life? You just Google what % of our decisions are made subconsciously. Google that. It's going to come up at 95%. So if you struggle and you're trying all these self-help gurus or reading all these self-help books and not getting ahead, that's because you're not working on your subconscious mind. The most important thing you can ever do is work on your subconscious. That's why we get massive results. You look at our clients, you watch the testimonials, the client interviews on my website. People get massive results. This is a next level of technology. And this is how you understand how to get over this, how to fix your subconscious. Because just working on your conscious mind, you're fighting an uphill battle. There's a much easier way to do things. Overcome self-sabotage, procrastination, not feeling safe, all these things here. We talk about it. Addiction, we talk about addiction. We're going to go into that today. So all free. The link is below in the description. All free. Go ahead and sign up. And so that's that. So now we're going to dive into this. Tim, you've been, the name of Matthew Perry's book, I want to say it, but I might be wrong. You've been...
Off the top of my head, it is, hang on one second.
It's a bestseller.
Yeah, it is. And it just came out a little while ago. It is, oh, heck.
Let's see if I can Google it faster then.
Yeah, it's...
You're listening to it, right?
Yeah, I got to go bring up my Audible, though.
Okay.
Didn't know you were going to quiz me so fast. But it's called Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing.
The big terrible thing is his
addiction.
Addiction, lifelong addiction.
Yep.
And so you have been listening to the audiobook. And what's the takeaway from his childhood? He talks about his childhood up front and the foundation of his life where all his subconscious programs develop. What's the takeaway, the summary?
So even before we get to his a little bit explanation will help to understand why he suffered with what he suffered. When you're born into this mortality, the most opportune thing that can happen to you is to be born into a family with 2 loving, caring, doting parents.
100%.
Parents that guide you, direct you, challenge you, love you, accept you for who you are, acknowledge that you exist, include you in their group called a family, maybe other siblings come along, etc. All
they
of
celebrate you.
Things,
they're so happy they have a kid and you feel it.
Right. If you receive those, you start developing subconscious routines that understand that, hey, when this happens, I feel love. Hey, when this happens, I know I'm acknowledged. When this happens, I know I'm good enough, even though I made a mistake. It wasn't me that made the mistake. It was just something that happened and I learned from it and I moved on. Matthew Perry and many others, Robin Williams, Marilyn Monroe, Kurt Cobain, the list can go on.
The list goes on and on.
Yep. Are not born into that situation. So Matthew starts off his book in the prologue alone is almost 40 minutes long. And he goes into when he was born, he was a colicky baby And the first thing they did to him at a couple of months old was to prescribe, back in the 70s, phenobarbital as a baby to relax the baby, to get them to stop screaming and yelling because the parents were distressed. So
yeah, don't just give the kid love and hold him.
right.
Put
So
him on a
and
drug.
again, I've never had a colicky baby, so I didn't go through that. But within a year, his parents separated. His dad drove his mom to the Canadian border by Niagara Falls, gave the baby, Matthew, to the mom and the grandpa, Mr. Langdon, who was like a military guy. So subconscious trauma is coming down through the generations.
Yeah, abandonment trauma right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And his dad left for New York and California to find his acting career. Funny enough, he became the Old Spice man, whistling and smelling good. And Matthew Perry saw more of his dad on TV and ads than he did in real life. Now, the mom, also probably not really wanting to be a mom, was a gorgeous lady and became Pierre Trudeau's PR spokesman, or whatever they call that kind of person. Like our,
well, she's working, dad's not there.
So who's raising the kids? Grandparents who are also full of subconscious trauma, et cetera. So Matthew immediately, in the very first part of his book, talks about how he feels, and how you feel about what happened to you is the trauma or the good stuff. It may be not trauma. Maybe it's all good stuff and you feel great about it. But Matthew Perry, from a very young age, and he mentions this in the first 2 hours of listening to his book, that he doesn't feel good enough and that he doesn't feel like he belongs to anything or anyone. And he probably developed some rage and resentment, but he doesn't go into that yet. But he also never felt safe. And he found at the age of 14 that when
because you're alone as a baby, you're terrified. You're like, who's going to take care of me? I don't know how to clothe and feed myself.
Question.
I don't know what's
in the
out
age
there.
of 14, when he had his first sip of alcohol, he describes as feeling normal. Not that he knew what normal was, but it was the first time that he felt safe.
He feels not abandoned. He feels not neglected.
He also felt in the first couple of years of grade school that the opportunity for him to receive the validation that his internal world was looking for was to become the funny guy, to become the entertainer.
That's how I get the love and acceptance I'm craving that mom and dad don't give me.
Right. And he even mentions he never, ever got enough validation. So it is the never-ending hole, with just like Robin Williams and Kurt Cobain. No matter how much their achievements, no matter how anxiety-ridden they were, they still never received that internal validation at the core. So we will talk about today, and we'll use Matthew as an example, sadly, because he was a funny guy. Quick mind, quick wit, could really come up with the gags, got a major hit show when he was 24 years old, rode that for 10 years. But again, it's never enough. It's never enough. So
outer
let's begin there.
Does not change subconscious programs.
That's correct. And he says he'd love to have the hundreds of thousands of dollars that he spent on counseling back. Because you know why?
Didn't work.
He knew really deep down it didn't get him any further along. He was still addicted to the day he died.
Yeah. So working on your conscious mind, cognitive techniques, they are helpful to a point. It takes a long time for them to maybe partially reprogram your subconscious. Partially, maybe. The stats are like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's considered the gold standard. There's other variations of this with different names, but they're all working on your conscious mind, trying to fix your subconscious. And the data shows for people with depression, mild to moderate depression, that's what CBT's one of the things supposed to be best at, depression and anxiety. It works for half the people. The other half just never respond.
It's moderately successful.
It works at least a little for half the people.
At least
it works
a little.
to some degree for half the people. Doesn't mean it works well.
Right.
And that's because if you're working on your conscious mind, cognitive mind, that's prefrontal cortex, our emotions are limbic, which are in the middle, completely different part of the brain. So what we do is we directly work on where the trauma and bad subconscious programs are, and we work at a subconscious level directly on it to change that. That's why what we do is so much more effective. Now, we're not medical professionals, so we don't work with any, diagnosed condition or anything like, I shouldn't even put that in quotes. What we do is we teach you to unconditionally love yourself, believe in your ability and value, get rid of all that toxic shame, and let go of anything that doesn't serve you. And if Matthew had that, he would have had a much different, much better life. 75% of our beliefs, our subconscious beliefs, that's what they are, tied to feelings, good or bad, are formed by age 8. That's his childhood. And CBT has limited effectiveness at best. And so we just did the Cheryl Burke, 3-4 weeks ago. She's been in therapy for 10 years and she's still struggling. You know, so every week, like, I think she has 2 therapists, and it's just like, when are they going to
taking her money, man? They're just taking her money.
When are they going to figure it out? You saw me add this just real briefly earlier. Let's see. I got to get to the right part, but we have something. And guys, we're going to watch some videos in just a moment. Oops, I think I went too far. Chapter 8 is addiction. This is the ebook here. Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong direction. No.
Go up, up level.
Oh, man. Why is this? Oh, what it does is it disappears. The page number, the prompt disappears, which is extremely annoying, by the way. And when it disappears, then when I click, see, it's doing it again. It's so annoying. The prompt disappears. I hate you. And Jordan and Tim know that I don't really carry any like anger in me at all for anyone, but I will cuss out my computer. But I'm not right now. There we go, because I'm live. Otherwise, I would be dropping an F-bomb right now, keeping it real. Okay, so John, by the way, this guy here, alcoholic, recovered from alcoholism. Where it says #1 New York Times bestseller. It's about 2/3 of the way, halfway down, 2/3. He talks about alcoholism, which is a big addiction for Matthew Perry. And he says, I used to drink to solve the problems caused by my drinking. The more I drank to relieve my shame-based loneliness and hurt, the more I felt ashamed. Feeling ashamed from drinking, but you drink to cure your shame. Also, alcohol subdues anxiety. And if you have abandonment trauma, neglected, feeling unsafe, you're going to have a ton of anxiety. So I think what Matthew said is when he drank, he no longer felt the anxiety. That's why they call it liquid courage. It shuts parts of your brain down, slows or shuts down. It's a little more complicated than that. But so he had a lot of trauma. We're going to look at the clips. Anything to add, Jordan, before we move on?
Not particularly. Once we get into the clips, probably, but I think you guys covered it.
Okay, no problem. All right, let's see here. His clips, just so you guys see a little bit more about his life. But listen, toxic shame, it's the #1 thing we work on. And it causes addiction, procrastination, self-sabotage, anxiety, depression. I mean, it's associated or at the root of these things, strong association. It causes so many issues. And unfortunately, here is an example of that. So let's go ahead and watch this first clip. And guys, when you want to pause, wait. When you want to pause, just let me know. So the life of Matthew Perry. Oh, let me make sure I'm getting the right clip. All right, here we go. You can insert boomer technology jokes here. All right, here we go.
Somebody kiss me, it's midnight. Somebody kiss me, it's midnight.
We all know Matthew Perry is one of the most relatable characters on Friends. He was funny, kind, and caring on screen. SAG, Emmy, and even a Golden Globe nominee. The whole package of a 90s heartthrob. But what about his off-screen life then and now? Why can't he recall major events and plot points in our favorite show? Are Matthew and Chandler the same person? Could it be any more exciting?
Could you want her more? Could we be more white trash? Could I be more sorry?
Keep watching the video to unfold the story. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Matthew Perry's acting career began in 1988 with a role in a small film called A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon opposite River Phoenix. A few years and many guest roles later, he scored the part of Chandler Bing and instantly became a success. The actor seemed to have it all. The first time he ever got onto the cover of People magazine, he sent it to one of his old teachers who said Matthew would never do anything of value if he kept joking around. Well, wasn't that?
Listen to that crap he got in his childhood right there, man.
So let's just drop one in here real quick.
Yeah.
One of the things when he saw his dad in ads and the Old Spice Man and stuff like that, he decided that the way to validation or to accepting that from other people is to become an actor. And you could imagine the toxic environment that brings in kids that are sharp and witty and uses them up to make them an actor. So he went through the process of getting into Hollywood and succeeding successfully physically, but not mentally.
Yeah, so the whole Hollywood acting industry, TV, all of that is people seeking validation, traumatized people seeking validation and just stepping into a shark tank, stepping into a really toxic environment where ironically they get no after no after no, most of them, and just really messes people up. But it's like some people think Hollywood, makes people toxic. It more so they're toxic or not. When I say toxic, I just mean traumatized, having toxic shame. Those type of people are attracted to Hollywood because they're like, I feel terrible. I know I'm going to become famous and rich, and then everyone will love me. Then I'll feel good enough. And Matthew talks about that happening for him. And there's a key point that's going to come up later. I'll highlight it, but go ahead.
I'll add, I also remember, if you think back to your elementary school or even middle school days or even high school days, I'm starting to notice a pretty clear pattern I remember the people in my class who were like the funniest people, who consistently had jokes all the time. Mm-hmm. You could always count on them to make a comment that would make you laugh. And looking back, they're all similar to Matthew Perry. They all had something going on in their home lives that made them be that way. I don't remember too many people who were super funny and also had a super stable upbringing. It seems
coping
like
response.
It's a very common coping.
Didn't they look cool? Didn't they look cool while you were there?
Absolutely. I mean, they were hilarious. I mean, they
had a need to look cool. They had a need to look funny, so they got really good at it because they needed it.
Now, when I was growing up, we were very middle class, right? I wore jeans and T-shirts to school with tennis shoes. I never dressed up except for church on Sunday, that kind of stuff. Yet there were kids coming to school that were witty and funny and had the best shoes and the best pants. And back then it was all those designer pockets and stuff like that, and had the best silk shirts. And, they were just dressed up nice, had the real nice eyeglasses, were witty, all that kind of stuff. 40 years later, some of them have passed, sadly, but others I see in their Facebook posts now, the tragedy they were living through. So all of that thing that I thought was really cool and neat, and I looked up to those people, I have now found out that they were living through a lot of tragedy.
Yeah, and they're trying to compensate for the shame in them.
Yeah.
And there's different responses to shame, but one of the responses is, I feel terrible. I know I'll get validation and love by making others laugh, by becoming popular, by doing everything. Now, a lot of women will do this with their physical attractiveness. The women, now, again, there are women who are extremely beautiful who are also emotionally healthy. I know several of them. But there's also a subset of women who say, I don't feel good. I'll become as attractive as possible, and then I'll feel good enough because, and this is Marilyn Monroe, they get all this attention from men who are just falling over them. It does not fix your subconscious childhood beliefs. By age 8, 75% of our subconscious programs are in us by age 8. They get down there and they solidify and they become static. Unless there's specialized techniques or maybe certain very momentous life events, or, they can change slowly over time, but for most people, they don't change. For Matthew Perry, his subconscious beliefs about his own internal shame and his self-worth and value, unfortunately, all that therapy did not change this lifelong struggle based on this shame he had in him. It can be changed. We know how to change it. That's what we're doing for people all the time. I was just reading to you guys earlier, a guy who said, I know you think I must have been a really bad case, Ryan, but I'm changing my life. And we get that all the time, people changing their lives. So that's why we have a show, because we know this stuff is really, really massively needed. Man, I wish I could have done it for Matthew Perry, man, because I know what it's like to suffer. I had a horrible childhood. Go ahead.
And I think I should clarify, like, the reason they become funny is because it works. People do they get that validation. It's not like they're trying to be funny.
It temporarily helps them.
Yeah.
But not permanently.
What I thought was interesting, the teacher said, oh, Matthew never does anything of value. He just makes people laugh. Like, for him, that's value.
Yeah.
It's value to him. And so,
what a crappy teacher, by the way. She just didn't know any better, but she did some harm there, unfortunately. All right, so moving on. Thanks, guys.
He made a career out of making people laugh, swoon, and have a good time. But deep inside, he was dealing with the greatest battle of his life. All the superficial things about fame came true, he told People in 2002 of the series' success. I was naive enough to think it would fulfill all aspects of my life. Witty and sarcastic is his character we know and love.
Exactly what we're talking about. I'm going to become famous. It's going to fix everything. He was naive. He already's talking about it.
Perry was addicted to alcohol even before Friends.
By the time I was 18, I was drinking every day.
Then, 3 years after the show's debut, he got into a jet ski accident and was prescribed Vicodin. Hello, Dr. House. Soon, he became utterly dependent on painkillers. From the start, I liked how it made me feel, and I wanted to get more. The same year, he checked into a rehab center in Minnesota and completed the 28-day program. Unfortunately, the sobriety didn't last. In 2000, Perry relapsed and ended up
Didn't last because it didn't fix toxic shame in his core.
and that's
spending
the
2
thing
weeks in
about
the
those
hospital.
drugs is that they mimic those feelings of some of them mimic the feelings of being good enough. Some of them just take away the pain in general. So it's very
Euphoria.
very clear to see why people become addicted, because it's not just the physical pain. It's removing or numbing the trauma inside your head.
Yeah. Now,
So let's cover substance abuse for a second. The alcohol, the Vicodin, all that kind of stuff are not addicting substances. They themselves don't cause the addiction. I have had Vicodin in my life when I've had kidney stones and stuff like that. I did not become addicted to it. I didn't need it to solve some other issue other than numbing the pain of my kidney stones. But when your subconscious is painful and struggling, and you pass a substance in front of that subconscious, and that subconscious says, wow, this feels a whole lot better now. I would like to get some more of that.
Yeah.
That is the addiction to that substance. And for him, 14 years old, alcohol passed through his system. His subconscious says, man, I love the way that makes me feel. That was enough for a while. Then when he got the Vicodin, which is a bit stronger than alcohol, past his subconscious, and his subconscious says, oh, I like the way that makes me feel. So now he becomes addicted. His subconscious becomes addicted to those things that make his subconscious feel better.
yeah, now I've never been a drug addict or alcohol at all, but because of my childhood where I had just like very severe manic depression, it was more depression than manic, but it was both. I know what he's feeling to some degree. And I will say, when you have toxic shame from childhood trauma like CPTSD, depression, etc., you feel at some level that shame all the time.
Every single minute.
Every single minute. And I know what the appeal is. Now, for me, I just did video games and just, other stuff. Like I had one time I played video games 17 hours. Anyways, I mean, you saw me before I cleared my trauma. I'd be playing video games till like 5 a.m. sometime and then sleep until noon,
Yeah.
Tim, I've known Tim for 18 years now, 18.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Anyways, something like that. I cleared my trauma 11 years ago, or, the big chunk of it was self-hypnosis, fixed the depression, a bunch of other stuff. He knew me when I still had some of it. So, he's feeling it all the time. And what the addiction does is it gives you a temporary respite where you don't, because otherwise it's just utter hell. There is no escape. There is no escape from feeling like a piece of crap 24/7. There's no escape until you find the drug, something to numb it out. It's so painful. And that's why, but what makes it even worse is you start to feel ashamed for drinking too much alcohol. You start to feel ashamed because you're hooked on these drugs. And then you're like, oh, I'm a loser because I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. And that makes, so now you need temporary relief to relieve all this terrible trauma in you. But then the thing that brings relief shames you even more. And it's just this spiraling cycle down. So the part I know what feels like is unrelenting bad feelings, unrelenting shame that you feel even at a low level all the time. If you don't do something to numb it out, it is there 24/7, excruciating.
Now,
And you absolutely have to do something to escape that. That's his life. I guarantee you. Go ahead.
yep, that is a burden that is heavy. And Jordan and Ryan and myself, nearly some of the very first words that come out of a client's mouth after we're done doing the hypnosis session is they feel lighter.
I knew exactly what you're going to say.
You know it because every single one, how do you feel? I feel lighter. Yeah, because the burden, some of the burden has been lifted and it feels good.
Yeah, sometimes a lot of the burden.
Yep.
Oftentimes.
Another thing I want to point out with these actors is that I think that Tim might have said it on the last show we did, but it was the Jim Carrey quote where Jim Carrey said that he feels like he's been playing Jim Carrey all his life. And I suspect Matthew Perry is probably similar, where he's playing on these, like, I think this, like the still that's on screen right now is him on a talk show. He's probably playing Matthew Perry, and that sort of, that being in that actor role kind of allows you to step out from those negative feelings temporarily and literally be someone else. So I don't think it's a coincidence that
I think it also, to add on to that, Jordan, is he's playing the role that he thinks other people want to see to give him the validation he's seeking.
Yeah, the real me isn't good enough, but I can pretend to be someone else that other people like.
Yep.
But that's its own kind of hell, knowing that you have to be something you're not to be accepted by others.
It's exhausting.
Because the real you is not acceptable.
Because you have to, because the thing is, you're constantly worried about people, like the persona cracking, that you have to always be on. And always
narcissists really struggle with this. So they put out this perfect image to the world they can't let anyone know how bad they really are inside, according to how they believe. So they put up this perfect image and they do anything to uphold that image. But then all their trauma in them has to go somewhere. So they're basically emotional bullies. They feel better when they make others feel worse about themselves.
Right.
They're addicted to this narcissistic supply of power tripping off of emotionally hurting others, making others feel worthless. That's projection there. But outwardly, they're perfect. Same kind of, it's kind of runs parallel to what's happening here, except of course, narcissist is much more predatory. I think Matthew Perry at his core, from what I can see, really good human being who just struggled because of it's not his fault. He was an addict. It was his childhood. It was his parents who really, really messed up, but they had their own trauma too.
Yes, they did.
And I have clients come to me who have really traumatic upbringings, and then they talk about their, their parents were traumatized and traumatized the parents. And it's like, this is why you're great, because you're here with me now to break this toxic lineage. You're breaking the trauma that your parents didn't break, and that you couldn't, your grandparents didn't or couldn't, your parents didn't or couldn't. You're fixing it now so you don't pass it on to your kids. That's noble. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I also want to clarify, it's not like Matthew Perry is terrible. He's always playing someone who's fake, but in reality, he's like a bad person. It's like, he's playing the person that I think he wants to be.
Felt
And
bad.
there's probably an element where if he just acts this, he thinks if I just act this way enough, I'll eventually become that. And so I think it's coming from a place of, he really wants to be that way, but there's that incongruency with his actions and what's in his subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is it's like gravity. It's like a magnet. It's always going to pull you back down to its level. And so that's why we talk about up leveling. You have to bring that level up so that your natural tendency is to move towards things and actions which display you to be a person of high self-esteem versus a person of low self-esteem. Because whatever's in your subconscious mind, that's what your default always goes back to. So when your default is really high, when you're in a spot of being low, you'll gravitate back up to being high. But if your default's always low and you go high, you're always going to get pulled back down. So
yeah, I experienced that in my life. Something bad happens after a few minutes, like, hey, your life's awesome, you're doing great, and my mood just lifts back up because that's where my subconscious is. So Christian Martin, welcome to the show. We're keeping an eye on comments. Any questions, just ask them, guys. We'll be happy to answer. So moving on.
Hospital for pancreatitis. He lost 20 pounds, and that still wasn't enough to get him to quit drinking. Despite the people closest to him and their pleas, he just wasn't ready for it and refused to seek help until 2001. You can't tell anyone to get sober. It has to come from you, he explained. While he remembers he was out of control and very unhealthy, Matthew was adamant he wouldn't have a drop at work.
I made a rule that I would never drink or take anything at work. So I would never do that, but I would show up blindly hungover.
Though he often came in extreme cases of hangover, he actually has no recollection of filming specific episodes, including moments like Phoebe's surrogacy, Ross and Emily's marriage, and Monica and Chandler in Vegas. I think the answer is, I don't remember 3 years of it, he told BBC Radio 2 in 2016. So none of those, somewhere between season 3 and 6, I was a little out of it. It was coming from a man who didn't need a script while auditioning for the part of Chandler Bing. He knew the pilot by heart. How did that happen? Matthew Perry had been helping a friend when he realized that the part sounded very similar to himself in real life. Coincidence? Who knows? What we do know is that Chandler got a few traits and multiple lines from the man himself. Perry was the only one from the main cast to sit in with writers. He was so funny and witty that directors often used his suggestions on the show. It may be hard to believe, but he actually shares quite a lot with our favorite Smarty Pants. His parents divorced when he was a kid. Awkwardness around women was also his addition. And
People-pleasing, nice guy, anyone?
Yep.
Very, very successful, charming, people-pleasing, nice guy.
what was Monica's work?
And he struggled with women. That's what happens with nice guys.
Well, he never felt good enough.
Yeah. Well, and so, really good book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, talks about toxic shame and how it makes nice guys, and then nice guys struggle in so many ways and don't get the girl, etc. Yeah, there's parallels here.
First Thanksgiving? Oh, right. Accidentally cutting off Chandler's toe. Not exactly. But yes, Matthew Perry's top right part of his middle finger is missing because his grandfather accidentally closed a car door on his finger. Chandler wasn't the only character who made the show better by having something to do with Matthew Perry. Remember the highly emotional boyfriend of Rachel circa season 6, Just a Love Machine? Yes, we're talking about one and only Bruce Willis, who actually won an Emmy for his performance as Paul. How did they get him to join for a few episodes? We know that Brad Pitt guest starred as well, but he was married to cast member Jennifer Aniston at the time. Long story short, Matthew's whole 9 yards co-star lost a bet and agreed to appear on Friends for free. Julia Roberts guest starring in the show wasn't an accident either. You might have heard something about writing a paper on quantum physics, right? Series creators and producers were very excited about Roberts coming in, but she didn't agree to join the episode right away. According to executive producer Kevin Bright, Perry asked her to be on the show, and she told him that she'll join if he writes a paper on quantum physics. Bright assumed that Matthew went away and did it and faxed it to her the next day. It's worth mentioning that Perry and Roberts had so much chemistry on set that they ended up dating in real life shortly after filming. The relationship was fairly private, and eventually they went on to see other people.
We'll
He
skip
kept up
ahead just a little.
appearances for tell you they love you and want to help you. Eventually, you have to realize it yourself in order for things to happen.
There you go. That's a big nugget there.
After overcoming his demons, Matthew Perry decided to use his experience to give back and help others. Paying it forward, he didn't just offer the words of wisdom, some advice. He took action and remade his Malibu mansion into a sober living facility.
See, he's trying to do what's right, man. He's a
Yep.
good person. He just had these struggles. So one thing I want to add is there are some people out there, even people who are gurus, so-called, and they will shame people for not being good enough, for being out of shape, whatever. It's like, dude, don't do that, man. You don't know what people are struggling with. You're just adding to their toxic shame and driving them further into addiction. People are morbidly obese, addicted to food. So you don't shame them. A lot of them are good people, and shaming others or thinking others are losers, you don't know what they're going through, and it doesn't help anything. If anything, maybe you don't feel that great about yourself, so you feel better when you shame them. Just don't do it.
2013. He was also able to raise $45 million to support the funding of drug courts. Perry thinks
Look at that. Good guy. Just had a terrible childhood.
it's nice for people to see that somebody who once struggled in their life is not struggling anymore. He also told The Hollywood Reporter that the fact that he's on TV helps people listen a bit more, and he's trying to take advantage of that once in a while. In 2015, Perry received the Phoenix Rising Award from the nonprofit drug and alcohol rehabilitation organization Phoenix House.
Okay, and we'll go to the other one, but you guys have any comments before we switch to the other clip, which has more it's more interview format.
I want to add this. The thing that we don't ever get from Matthew Perry fully, but we see tiny glimpses of, is his authentic self. Because he's so clouded with toxic shame that developed into those subconscious routines that makes him feel alone and not good enough and doesn't deserving, so on and so forth, it clouds who he really is. Like Jordan said, he's playing the part that he thinks everybody wants to see. But then when he gets down to it, you start seeing glimpses of the helpfulness and the consideration. He's probably generally a super nice guy, would have still been tremendously successful no matter what, but his life is shortened because of all of his addictions.
Yep.
And I'll also add, I think people have a tendency, like his thing, I'm going to make a house that's drug and alcohol free. It's like, that's nice, but you're really just addressing symptoms of a larger issue.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is part of the solution. If you're an alcoholic, you definitely want to get rid of all the booze in the house.
It is, but my concern is that you may end up swapping one problem for another, and you're not really treating the root, because that's the the addictions are the symptom of the larger issue. And I think my only criticism of when people focus on we got to be drug and alcohol free, it's like, great, but the root cause of the problem still exists, and it may manifest in other areas. And so,
that's the thing. That's why rehab doesn't work. It's like you still got your shame. You still have all these terrible subconscious core identities.
The prohibition is a cognitive thing that we do to limit the damage we're doing to ourselves because of our shame, as Jordan mentions and as Ryan mentions. So if this thing affects me badly, if I prohibit that from my life, then it will do me good to do that. And I'll be able to be more of myself without that particular substance. Now, again, I point out many people consume alcoholic drinks. There's brandy sippers and whiskey sippers.
And they're not addicted.
Wine testing and all that kind of stuff. And they go home and they're fine. They have one or two. They don't use it to cover up. So let's jump into Christian Martin's question, because this leads right into that. Is awkwardness around women from trauma or generally not knowing what to say or do? The answer is yes.
Well,
why?
It's both.
Yeah, why? Because number one, you don't feel like you belong to the group of people that could attract nice women, then you don't feel good enough or deserving of their affection should you try to get it. So in his second comment, he says he relies on booze. Many people do. It is the social lubricant, because now it starts to make that subconscious trauma sit in the back seat for a while you can now have a conversation. Sadly, when that wears off, that other thing comes back and you're going to struggle with that trauma. So there's nothing wrong with being awkward around women, because quite frankly, we think they're very gorgeous and all that different kind of stuff. So there's going to be a little awkwardness there as you get to know them, but we end up saying stupid things that we think they want to hear, we watched on TV or whatever, rather than being our authentic self. So yes, Matthew relied on booze. Christian, you mentioned you relied on booze to socialize with women. It's the social lubricant. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you belong, and it makes you feel like you're a bit good enough. Jordan, I see something brewing there.
Well, I'm thinking it kind of depends on the individual. I think there are some guys that just, they don't have too much toxic shame, but they just need to see it. They need to see guys do it in order, like, okay, it's just, they might learn a couple, like training wheels. I think what they've often called some pickup is like understanding, okay, this is kind of the way to interact. Like they've never seen, like a lot of guys that come from broken homes, many of them may have never even seen a positive male-female interaction to begin with.
Absolutely.
So they have no reference point. I kind of think I was in that same boat where I had no real reference point for like, what do you do? But if you also have the toxic shame involved, so they're separate, and you need to address both. And so, and that's kind of what I had to do, honestly, to deal with my, I mean, I have a great girlfriend now, but like in order to get there, I had to address both the toxic shame and the mechanics of, okay, this is how you take a girl out on a date. This is how you have a conversation. Like,
good point. Really good point.
It's really both. And I'll tell you my own experience. Really struggled with dating for a long time. I do much, much better now. And it's a combination. When you learn to value yourself, like deep down in your core, like, man, I have massive value. I have something to offer the world. And the more I do anything, the better I get at it. I'm just practice, learn, and grow until I get the skill, and then I win. I get what I want. So if you have that in your core, that's going to get rid of a lot of anxiety right there. I think you're always going to have a little anxiety with a new pretty girl, but it'll be like 2 out of 10. It's going to be, fairly low. But what I noticed is when I started to value who I was, when I started saying, hey, I do have something to offer. And one of the things I learned early on as I recovered from my own toxic shame is the real me. Before that, I was ashamed of the real me. And I learned, the real me is the best part of me. So when I got into my core that the real me is the best part of me, I started naturally exhibiting authentic confidence, being confident about who I really was. And I every now and then you hear me mention some of my shortcomings. Like I get frustrated at my computer. I might F-bomb my computer, okay. I'm not ashamed of that. It's like part of what makes me unique, right? It's like, so when you have that authentic confidence, your success, if your sexual market value with a woman was a 7, it goes up a full point to an 8. If you were a 6, now you're a 7. You gain a full point just being authentically confident. You get more attractive girls. You learn game 2, you're going to go up another point. But also, when you feel good about yourself, you're probably going to get in better shape. You're probably going to, start dressing better, better hairstyle, earning more money. And just when you believe in yourself, you just up level. Your outer world will eventually match your inner world. If your inner world's really good, and if you want certain things, most guys want attractive women. So a lot of this stuff just kind of naturally, organically happens once you fix your core identity. It changes everything. So you might start out as a 5 out of 10 and be struggling with women. You fix your core, and when your outer world up levels, you make more money, you're authentically confident, and then you actually learn the skill of how to interact with women, which can be studied. You learn that, now you're an 8 out of 10. Like literally. I mean, that's my story.
Hey,
So
Ryan.
yeah.
Time to cuss at your camera, dude.
Oh.
That might be a stream.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
Yeah, I see what I did.
I'll also add that we know plenty of. I think we've all seen plenty of guys that. I mean, hell. I mean, the example that comes off the top of my head is Dan Bilzerian, who, you know, is known for having women around him. But if you've read his book, which is I actually really like, it's The Setup. He talks about having broken inner game. He's like, I feel like if I see a hot woman in front of me, I have to, you know, engage in activities with her. Let's keep it YouTube friendly. So, and so it's you can have broken inner game and still get women, and you can have broken inner game and not get women. So everyone's different. But the key is evaluate where you might be. You know, he was never afraid of talking to them, but he was always like, I'm going to set up a scenario so that the interaction is positive. But he's not, I don't think he ever felt comfortable going up to random people he'd never met before. Like his big thing is, I want to be the one who gets approached. And so he compensated for the fact that he didn't feel comfortable approaching girls by creating a scenario where they approached him. But he still has the broken inner game of fearing that rejection, feeling like he's not good enough. And so,
you know what? 100%. That is so much work.
Yeah.
To create that scenario to bump into somebody, you know, it's hard. And I think if you go back to your authentic self, everything else sort of comes naturally. Right? The only reason we're afraid of women is because we don't feel good enough to be around them. Or we're afraid of them because the other women that we knew destroyed us. So if that mother gave you love and affection and acknowledgement and made it safe and secure for you to be around, and your dad was kissing your mom now and again and giving her a hug now and again, all of a sudden it's like, well, I have an example of how people are supposed to act. And I'm not afraid of women because the women in my life were awesome. Then you can now go out and detect and find the right girl because now you're going to be less manipulated.
Yeah.
Because of your authentic self. So you'll end up, I know that we always focus on that 10, but 10 for a lot of guys is sort of this insecure thing. Like, I got to have this woman because other people will think I have validation because she's a 10. And in reality, that 10 could be a disaster or it could be phenomenal. You don't know till you get in there, but you will find out that with you being authentic and working on your inner game on the inside, you're now going to attract that woman who has the good inner game. And together, you're going to make a heck of a couple. And you, quite frankly, could give a crap what anybody thinks.
Yeah, and Tim has a very, very good marriage, a great relationship with your wife. You've been married how long now, Tim?
Just over 40 years.
Yeah. And I've spent extended time with him and his wife. They really do have a great relationship, so he knows what he's talking about. My ebook actually talks about this. It actually talks about 3 motivational archetypes. If you feel good enough just for who you are, you have a good inner world. That's the first one. You live a good life. You go after what you want. You don't need to go to extreme lengths to feel good enough. But there's 2 other motivational archetypes. One feels not good enough, so they stay small. And extreme case is, and there's a lot of these now, unfortunately, are like these black pill incels living in their parents' basement, playing video games all day, getting overweight, and just incels, and they're miserable. You know, feeling not good enough, staying small, or just playing it safe, not living your best life because you just want to play it safe. You don't feel you deserve that. The third archetype is people like Matthew Perry. They feel terrible and they say, I know if I become rich and famous, I will feel better. It could be fame, rich, become super jacked, whatever. This is Dan Bilzerian too. He fits this archetype. Marilyn Monroe, all these traumatized, wonderful people. So they try extremely hard. They spend a lot of time looking good. They become very charming. I mean, this is narcissists, but also comedians. It's not all toxic, behavior, predatory behavior. And so they can become very successful. They can become very charming, very good looking, have a lot of success with the opposite sex. But in relationships, it's a nightmare. They have addictions. We call this dirty fuel. For a small percentage of people, their toxic chain fuels them forward, like it did with Matthew Perry. But there is a very, very, very high price to pay. Kurt Cobain too, Robin Williams, all these people. So they become these, super achievers, and yet inwardly they are tortured souls, and you can see it with addiction and other stuff that comes up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now, let's comment on Christian's comment here. Went on a date with a girl who I believe was out of my league and totally blew. Sounds like you totally blew it. And it's real, right? So, Christian, hopefully we can encourage you, if you've not done it already, to work on that inner game. Because once your inner game is secure, you know what? Every single woman on the earth is in your league. And now
100%.
You get to decide who gets to play. Period.
Yeah.
And you'll feel good about that. And it's not a braggadocious type of thing. It's like the inner guy, or the guy with the good inner game is gentle, secure, tactful, polite. He's not this big obnoxious alpha male that we sometimes hear about. The true alpha male, you don't really know he's an alpha male, but the women can tell. The women can see the confidence.
That guy also enforces boundaries. If a woman doesn't
Absolutely.
respect him, he gets rid of her. Doesn't matter how cute she is.
Bingo.
I did a video on that. It's better to lose the woman than to lose your self-respect. And if
100%.
you really value and respect yourself, here's a subconscious program I put in people. I have them imagine a gem in their heart, a massive shining jewel, and say, this is the real authentic me. And if others don't see my jewel's value, doesn't mean I don't have value. It means they can't see it. That's their blindness. That's their problem. But I do show it proudly to the world, because many do see its value, and it does have value. So if you feel like that in your core, you're just authentically who you are. If she rejects you, a lot of people, this woman rejected me. A lot of guys, this woman rejected me. I'm not good enough. I'm a loser. I'm a reject because this girl rejected me. Or if I get the girl, now I'm good enough, but otherwise I'm not. Jerry Maguire saying, you complete me, in that Tom Cruise movie. Jerry Maguire said to, I forgot the name of the girl, famous actress. He said, you complete me. It's like, no, you're already complete. You should already feel complete.
That's right.
Yes.
Juan Korea, my good friend Juan, welcome to the show.
Hello, Juan.
I was going to respond to the Christian's comment. One of the symptoms that I often look for is self-deprecating language.
Yeah,
I don't do that.
It's a symptom of something wrong in your subconscious. So look at the phrasing that you used, Christian, was I believe was out of my league. You're putting yourself down and you're putting her above you. But the tendency to just do that naturally is a symptom of some sort of inner game issue. Because
I'm not good enough.
100%.
I'm not as good as her.
Right.
Or you don't deserve her.
And that's bullshit.
Yeah.
It is. It's bullshit. Are you a match for each other?
Yeah, Jordan's on the money with this one. Yeah. Jordan is on the money.
On the money, Jordan.
Yep.
Look at how people talk about themselves. Do they generally talk positively about themselves, or do they speak negatively? Oh, she's out of my league. She wasn't just assuming. The thing is, it may be the case she's not into you, but how do you speak about that? Do you speak about that? Well, it just wasn't the right fit, or I wasn't good enough for her. Like, there's a very big difference. You might not be a good fit for the hot girl or any girl you want to date, but that doesn't mean but the way you talk about it reflects what's inside your subconscious mind. If it's, she was a nice girl, but we just didn't connect, that's one thing. But, I blew it. She was out of my league. You're saying I blew it. You're talking negatively about it. Maybe you just weren't a good fit in general.
Yep. Now, if Christian had solid inner game, which we hope he's working on, and he went on a date with a girl, he may eventually believe that she's out of his league. Mm-hmm. Right? Just like Jordan said, I turned it around a little bit, but it's the same thing. Yeah. Hey, or just she does not fit within my frame because she's whatever, damaged or something, or got a bad tattoo. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you move her on. Next.
To be fair, you can do things on a date which, quote, blow it. but if you do that, and I think we've all been on dates with chicks that were like, you know what, I probably shouldn't have said that. That probably ruined it. But the difference is you move on and you don't think of, you're like, oh, well,
That's
I
it.
know
Yeah.
the
Oh,
approach
well,
is, I know better
That's a
for
learning
next time.
experience.
Oh, well, it'll be a funny
Learn
story
and
for
grow.
later, versus, oh man, ruminating on it constantly, going, man, I did that wrong. I blew it, just constantly in your head. There's a big difference there. I mean, the reality is, you might do things on dates that don't go over so well. Mistakes happen, but it's
You
the
mean
way
you're
you
human?
We
approach
learn
it.
and grow,
Right.
man.
Exactly.
Got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Beginners make mistakes, but you keep going, you get better.
Mhm.
It's all good. All right, back to our good friend, Mr. Perry. All right. This is a good one. It's going to get more in depth here.
Looking back at scenes from Friends when everyone was having such a good time.
I'm fine. No, I'm not alone. I don't know, some guy.
Yes, he was some guy.
I'll tell you something about women. There are women like this who prefer a guy with a dad bod. Just saying. It's actually true. There's scientific data coming out. Like especially once they start looking to get married, they actually prefer, some women, actually a lot of women, even very attractive ones, would prefer dad bod once they're looking for a husband. So you think you're out of your league? No, it's all over the place. Different women look for different things. Anyways, moving forward. That there's scientific data on that. Look it up. There's just a we'll do a show next week that I think will be very revealing, talking about dating psychology along these lines. Because I just saw this really good interview where they bring some of this data out that I think would be worth exploring next week. But here we go. And yeah, some women do like the super jack guys too. It varies.
I don't really watch the show, so that was really fun to look at.
And they also loved cracking each other up in real life. These are from the outtakes.
There. That was right.
When the team did not star David Schwimmer, he will not leave his other friends behind.
David Schwimmer was the hot guy in the first year. He got the first movie, and he came into my dressing room when we were about to renegotiate. And he said, I think we should negotiate together. And I said, great, idiot. That sounds great.
Together, they negotiate a new contract. And they'll also have new terms
Again,
for a flashback, a
self-deprecating.
redo of that fountain.
You had a comment, Jordan?
That's self-deprecating. He's calling him an idiot for wanting to negotiate with himself.
Yeah.
Scene. This time,
It could be just dudes ribbing each other, but yeah, there's some truth to that, Jordan.
it's different.
And we were like, warm the water. We're only going to be there for 30 minutes. We're not going to be dancing this time. Like, we had all these rules because we were powerful then.
Ultimately, as we know, their salaries will set a record. By the last 2 seasons, $1 million per episode each. It is a fortune, and it takes us to a central question as we start the story. How does someone whose life is filled with so much luck and talent end up struggling so much? With the disease of addiction, the fear, the shame, and hiding the cracks inside. Perry says he's proof that addiction can enter any home, any heart, even one with golden parents. Talk about glamorous parents, huh?
Yeah.
His parents were outwardly golden.
Yep.
They were terrible parents. They looked great on the outside.
His handsome dad is John Bennett Perry, a singer and actor, and once the heartthrob of TV's manliest commercial.
My father being the Old Spice guy.
Yes.
Hard to bring girls home when that happens because they're like really wanting to talk to my dad.
His Canadian mother is the captivating, hard-working press secretary to Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau.
She set me up for being funny because I just loved her laugh so much. They're both people that take over a room, when they come in.
But his very young parents had separated before he was a year old. They lived on opposite coasts and started new families. He remembers being that little boy giving away his mom to her new husband. He remembers when his dad marries a new wife. His step-parents are loving. He has wonderful new siblings. But for some reason, he said, as he grew up, he felt a kind of loneliness, never sure he was good enough to belong.
Bingo.
She tried him out
like
the fault
Just,
line.
just more and more, just reaffirming everything we're
It's-
talking about.
I like how she says all the reasons, but for some reason, it just like did she not like all this bad stuff happened to me, but for some reason I don't feel good. It's like it's weird.
Not evident. It's not evident to them because they think it's all that cognitive effort of becoming who you want to become, and this disease can enter any home. Well, it's got nothing to do with the disease. Like Ryan said in his first video many, many years ago, it's like the epidemic of our time is toxic shame.
Feeling you're not good enough.
Period.
And one thing about the red pill that's good is it says, guys, improve yourself. A good career.
Yep.
Money, muscles, game, frame, all of that. That's all good. But understand that does not fix your inner world. You got to work on your inner world to feel good enough. So if you guys are going to the gym every day and you're working on a career to hit 6 figures or whatever, and you're working on gaming, all this, great. That's awesome. But if you think that's going to make you feel good enough, it doesn't. Here is Exhibit A right here, Matthew Perry. It does not fix your trauma. You have to go in and fix your inner world. That's what we do. This is a missing link that so many people chasing all this success don't understand. And Matthew Perry himself says, man, I got all this fame and then I still felt like crap. And it was just a big earth-shattering moment for him. Oh, crap, this doesn't work.
Nope.
Oh, crap, all this fame doesn't make me feel better. It's a temporary fix at best. And then I go back to feeling like crap. So you got to take care of your core. And when you take care of your core, it does help you succeed more. Most people who have toxic shame are in the camp of not getting all the success they want. Again, there's some who try very hard, like Matthew Perry, Kurt Cobain, Marilyn Monroe, Robin Williams, the list goes on. There are some people like that, and then they live tortured lives. Most people, their toxic shame does keep them small, does hold them back, at least partially. So for most people, you're going to get more success when you fix your inner world. But understand, even if you get all that success, it will not fix your inner world. You still have to go in and change that. That is the number one reason we have a show, is to help people with that. Anyone else comments?
Go, Jordan, go.
Oh, no.
Okay, so I'll jump in, and I will say that, Juan, I loved your last comment. When a woman is really into you, so what does that mean, into you? It means into your authentic self. When you fix your inner game, everything lines up, not perfectly, because life is life and it's a struggle and it's hard and things happen. But I'm talking more of if she's really into you, which means she sees your value. It's not that you only see your value, which is important, but now she sees your value, which means she probably has a whole lot less issues than everybody else that's around here. And she is now going to do the work to attract you as a mate, because she's going to feel that you're going to love her, keep her secure and safe, raise a family, provide, very caveman oriented stuff.
Yeah. What a lot of women do is they just make it very easy for you. They engage a lot more. They make themselves available more. So it's a lot easier to get a date with them, unless they're being dumb and playing hard to get. And, the data shows it actually hurts them, but some think.
And by the way, the reason that hurts them is because that's manipulation. Yeah.
And you can be a fake version of you that she buys into, but sooner or later she'll figure out that's a fake you and then leave you. And unless she's traumatized,
right. Correct.
Gets complicated. But anyways,
rest in peace, Matthew Perry, please.
Yeah. I think we'll finish this out. Anything else before we finish this out? Okay, we'll keep going.
Lines underneath an addiction, you often find unanswerable questions. Perry says he does remember the day he thought he had found an answer. He's 14 with his Canadian pals and a common teenage rite of passage.
I remember that day very well in Ottawa, Canada. I'd never drank before, and I was just sort of drank this entire bottle of what was called Anwar's Baby Duck. That was the name of the wine. And
I still remembers the name.
In the grass, and just was in heaven. And I thought to myself, this must be the way that normal people feel all the time. And I thought that at 14.
His friends could drink and stop.
Yeah, we'll stop there. Rest in peace, Matthew Perry. I'm sorry for your trauma. It is what it is. but let's learn from his, from his example. All the success in the world does not fix your inner world, and he wasn't a bad person at all. He tried to do many good things, and he did do a lot of good things in his life. Yeah. So, any final comments from you guys, or you want to comment on Juan's?
He was simply crippled by toxic shame.
He was traumatized.
I never felt any resentment or rage, but I'll bet you it's in there somewhere because he was so abandoned.
Yeah, the number one thing my self-hypnosis audio on MindChrysalis and my training does is help fix toxic shame. And that free course is free. So again, you just look at look right below me, school.com, MindChrysalis. Go there, join it, and up level. Get feeling authentically confident. So anything else, guys?
Again, this kind of toxic shame, it's a universal feeling. Celebrities feel it at all levels of life. It's not just you. It's everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah,
all different
toxic
kinds of
shame
people.
is extremely common. More people
All different
have
cultures,
it. Most people have
all
it at
different
least a little.
There's something you can do about it.
Yep. And Juan, that is true. He's like, look at my dad. He's so much more handsome than me. I'm not as good as him. Yeah.
He even said the girls want to come to his house. They want to talk to him.
So he didn't want to bring him home to his.
He wasn't good enough. He didn't want to be rejected. It was too painful.
Yeah, it's all belief systems.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our show for today. Rest in peace, Matthew Perry. I'll watch a couple episodes of Friends tonight in his honor. Actually, I mean, it's great.
I've never seen the show.
It's pretty entertaining.
I've
It's
never
pretty
seen the
entertaining.
show.
It's kind of like one of those binge-worthy shows, like Seinfeld. I mean, different flavor, but it's very binge-worthy.
I was raising kids while that show was in its prime.
Yeah. I think it's on Netflix, or it might be on HBO Max. I'm not sure. It might be on HBO Max. So, anyways, rest in peace, Matthew Perry. Anything final, Jordan, before we wrap it up?
No, that's all good.
All right, guys, fix your core, because it is your core and it's extremely important to fix it. And if you guys are struggling with any of this, get some help, and we will help how we can. Again, we're not medical professionals, so we're not making any claims, other than the fact that we do have methods that help a lot of people to unconditionally love themselves, realize their value at their core. And when you do that, it changes everything, because you really do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thanks, guys.